Good morning, ReThink. What a fabulous day, right? And who thought you would come here this morning and hear about Plato and the Renaissance? I'm thrilled that we've had this opportunity, Jay. We are so grateful to the NAM. Carolyn, we're so grateful to the Manufacturing Institute for all you're doing. But David, the work you've done with the Manufacturing Leadership Council, you have brought us together to create the future. And what I want to do is give you the perspective of a well-established, you might say, industrial conglomerate. Siemens, founded over 177 years ago. Siemens, who was born in bringing industrial revolutions to life. But Siemens, involved in harnessing electricity, laying the transatlantic cable, bringing the first pixel transmission. We had an Emmy for that, by the way. These breakthroughs in technology over the years actually led us to that moment in the early 2000s when it was obvious software would change everything. Think about the iPhone, that platform that made us all able to do so much more. We believe at Siemens that it's that combination of the real and the digital that is transforming everything about our businesses. And as we get started on this conversation, first of all, I'm going to make sure that we have plenty of time for questions. So start thinking of them now. But I also want you to be thinking about not you and your company and the competition you're in. What I want you to think about is us. All of us are in competition against global megatrends. Now, Siemens built its strategy around 5 global megatrends: climate change, urbanization. 75% of the world's population will live in cities in the year 2050. Aging populations everywhere. The first person who will live to be 150 has already been born. And I tell my kids all the time, I'm living to 120, so plan for that. The supply chain has become ever more global. That's a mega trend, but we've recently shifted our focus to globalization. And then finally, the digitalization of everything. Those mega trends, that's what we're all up against, and the world needs makers. And so that's why today I want to introduce you to the most exciting sector of the tech economy. The industrial tech sector. What am I talking about here? The technologies that combine the real and the digital. You've heard it said that the funny thing about the real world is it's the only place you can get a hot meal, right? We have to live our lives in the real world. We've spent the last couple of decades bringing those digital technologies to life. We've seen how markets have responded. We've seen how everything has been transformed, from the way we entertain ourselves to the way we shop. Well, guess what? That same innovation is coming to the world of manufacturing. Many of you are already in it. Let me tell you about the components we see at Siemens and the elements of the tech world we want to bring to life. First of all, the digital twin. When we started making software acquisitions in the 2000s, our focus was to ultimately build the world's most comprehensive physics-based digital twin. And lo and behold, we're bringing that to life. The world is now operating on AI. That's fantastic. We can now harness information in ways that we never could before. And the third that we focus on is software-defined automation. And I've been seeing it here, right here in the networking section. We are getting connected. Those 3 building blocks are, in fact, the building blocks to transforming the everyday for everyone. And we can be working on this together. Now, a lot of people are talking about, let's bring manufacturing back. Let's reshore. I like those words. Those are nice. But the way I like to think about this is, let's revitalize manufacturing. Join me, if you will, in this discussion about the most exciting sector in tech. How are we going to revitalize manufacturing? In the United States, 98% of our manufacturers are small and medium enterprises. At Siemens, we work with 12,000 suppliers across the United States. We're well aware in our own operations of how hard it is to take existing operations and drive change. But what I want us all to be thinking about is the potential of actually repurposing what we have. And I'm looking at John Dolan. John, can you raise your hand? John Dolan is a leader in our electrical products division. And John is one of those leaders who understood early that digital transformation happens at the grassroots level. Gosh, what are the first things that we need to do? First, we've got to put tools into the hands of the people who get the work done. And what John's team did is they created multi-generational teams. Boy, we've got veterans of manufacturing with decades of experience. Everybody talks about the reskilling that's needed. What John and his team did is they started to insert digital natives into our own operations. In doing that, we got on the train and figured out a way to get started in our own digital transformation. But what's amazing is we can be thinking about the existing infrastructure we have and bringing more power to it. I'm going to tell you in a moment that the nomenclature of Industry 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, this may be interesting in just the way that verbiage has gotten people to think about waves of innovation that they might have missed. I'm here to tell you, you haven't missed the waves, and we have the ability to repurpose the facilities we have and the operations we have with incredible new power. Now, let's take a look with just a couple of stories, because we're working with lots of you. Many of you in the audience, and it was so fun last night during networking to meet so many of you. We're working together to transform your operations, but we're also transforming ours. We're on this journey with you. And I'll give you an example of our operations in Fort Worth, Texas. You see, one of the big transformations that's going on right now is the introduction of AI data centers. And you know how much power those data centers are using. Turns out, John and his team, the Siemens team, creates the low and medium voltage products that move electricity around at the grid edge. By the way, the grid edge, one of the most exciting places in the economy right now. We had a hyperscaler who came to us and said, I can't build my new AI data centers fast enough. I need more electrical switchgear. And the team in electrical products said, tell you what, we can partner up and build a new facility. Now, a lot of people these days are telling us that bringing manufacturing back is hard because building manufacturing is going to take years. Think differently. Look at what you already have. In this case, there was an existing industrial park located very, very close to our operations in Grand Prairie, Texas. We knew we had the expertise in the area. We knew we had a fantastic supply chain. Here was an industrial park absolutely ready for the new build. But the secret to moving fast is going digital first. The team built a digital twin of the equipment they intended to build. They built a digital twin of the actual manufacturing line. And I am here to tell you that within 15 months, that team got this factory ready to go. Here's a team that they've been working at a craft, again, a craft for decades. They've got master manufacturers who know exactly how things are supposed to be built. What's going to happen in this Fort Worth facility? The fact is, we've convinced the hyperscaler that if the hyperscaler would standardize on a design, we could actually produce through a flow. We could actually make these in large quantities much faster. The hyperscaler came along with us. And now the question is, what innovation, what automation do we want to put into this line ourselves? That got planned out. An automated production line, and I'll call it the rudiments of it today, because the most important thing to do is learn. The most important thing is not to over-automate. So here we have a team, they're newly in their their facility, and we have gear beginning to be produced, switchboards that ultimately will go into data centers. In there are the beginning outlines of automation. And the work that's being done right now is to start to gather those sensors, start gathering that data, and determine where are the places we want to actually build out and improve more automation. When I go into that factory today, I see not people, lifting and toting and putting hands into dangerous machines. What I see is teams of people collaborating, looking at the data that's beginning to come off the line and talking about what needs to be innovated next, what needs to change next. And people ask me all the time, well, where do you even start? One of the key things is all of this next phase of our digital lives runs on data. And I'm a firm believer that if we simply start there, the very first packages that any of us can be putting in are those sensors that give us the feedback of what's happening on the line. Take those sensors, gather that data. Now we can begin to innovate with the tools that are available to us today with AI and otherwise. Now, I'll tell you a little bit more about Fort Worth in a moment. But the thing I want to do is pause for a moment and talk about power, because that is the other dilemma we're facing. I have the privilege of going to the White House and talking to decision makers, policy makers, or up to the Hill to talk to lawmakers. And my message is simple. The economy can only grow as fast as our grid. Our economy can only grow as fast as we can grow the power that's available to us. And we will have an insatiable demand for power. What I'd like to encourage all manufacturers to do is to think about what's available in your own operations. Now, John is busy converting a lot of his lines to electric. We used to have gas-powered paint lines, for instance. We've gone electric there. That's a real problem for our utility. What do we do? Well, let's take a lesson from our colleagues at Wendell, North Carolina, who said, you know what, I've got a big medium voltage gear factory, but what I'm going to do is put solar over my parking area. And lo and behold, they installed a microgrid, and with that, they've been able to power the majority of their own operations. Get behind the meter. Do what you can with the resources you have. Repurpose existing facilities and move fast. We've got a lot of work to do. Now, what do we need to do next in terms of getting that factory going? Have you heard the phrase, partnership is the new leadership? We're living in an era when none of us alone will have the answers. We're living in an era where we're going to move faster if we go together. Walking through the networking section here, I can see people who, the salespeople in these organizations may meet the salespeople from my organization and say, we're competing against each other. But I'm trying to tell everybody, this is not a competition. We are working on this together. There is not enough of us to bring the electrification and the automation and the digitalization to the table. Let's all roll up our sleeves and get at it. And this is one reason that Siemens has actually created the Siemens Accelerator platform, a place where not only our own products, but those of others in our ecosystem and academia, that we can bring various components together so that what if we could help the small and medium manufacturers actually get over the hump of those first steps of digitalization? What if we could do that together? What difference would that make for the performance of our large manufacturers if the smallest among us was able to go on this journey with us? Ecosystems count. Now, by the way, there's another ecosystem we've been working on, and I had a conversation with David this morning that says he's working on this too. The ecosystem of capital. What does it take for people to get on board and start moving with the things that we're talking about here? People are really concerned about the high cost of entry. It doesn't have to be that way. Many of you are already offering software as a service. What about automation as a service? And what about finding ways to finance your operations? What about small businesses going to the Small Business Administration and then getting on board with packages of technology that are actually going to make them more productive? I mean, these things pay for themselves through the growth that we're going to be driving and, frankly, the new demand we're going to be creating. So I'd say look to create ecosystems within the business that you're driving. And I would be wrong to leave this stage without talking about workforce development. This is the question of the era. And David, thank you so much for setting this up the way you did. What is the role of the human in all of this? Our firm belief is that technology is not here to take our jobs. Technology is here to expand what's humanly possible. And I want to take you back to Fort Worth to think about if you're opening up a new switchgear factory in Fort Worth, Texas, where it's a hotbed of manufacturing. We know it's really hard to find talent. Are we going to steal from our brethren? Well, I mean, we know that a lot of people would love to come to work for Siemens, and we're happy to have them. But we're also thinking about people who maybe never considered manufacturing at all. The team in Fort Worth actually broke the mold again. What they did is they said, what if our first hires were retired principals and teachers? How about we build a curriculum that involves a couple of weeks in a classroom-like setting, then moves people into a virtual environment where they get the experience of what will be their work on the manufacturing floor, and then ultimately moves them onto the manufacturing floor with some veterans along the way. This has been remarkable. We've got former pizza delivery drivers, former checkout clerks, former chefs now in the field of manufacturing. So here we are in a moment when we have technology to apply. We've got people to do the work. We have facilities ready to open their doors and embrace those new technologies. This is a moment when we are creating the tech sector of the future. Now, here's the thought I want to leave you with before we go to questions. What if we're at the end of numbered industrial revolutions? I'm here to tell you that in this new tech sector that we are driving, this is the beginning of an infinite industrial revolution.